Last week, Arash made a video talking about the leaked early version of the leader in Captain America Brave New World. Now, the design of the leader has been a hot topic since the movie released. Some people were satisfied that Marvel chose not to go with this wackier, more comic-accurate version of the leader, while others lamented the design as just being very off-putting. Whether you like or dislike the version that we ended up getting in the final movie, I do think Marvel dodged a bullet by not going all in on this original version of the character. Looking at the history of the MCU, I think there's a very good reason why they didn't do it, and that is exactly what we'll be discussing on today's video. Samuel Stearns was set up, along with many of the other events that affect Captain America Brave New World, all the way back in 2008's The Incredible Hulk. Now, the MCU was in a wildly different place back then. Disney had not yet purchased Marvel Comics, with most of the movies in the MCU being distributed by Paramount, although due to Universal having the Hulk's distribution rights, they were the only ones allowed to make Hulk-centered movies. And until Phase 3, many people didn't really consider The Incredible Hulk full canon to the MCU. Bruce Banner was played by Edward Norton rather than Mark Ruffalo, the design of the Hulk looked very different, and many of the characters and events in the movie would not be referenced again until Captain America Civil War. That was where we saw the return of William Hurt as General Thunderbolt Ross. Now, at that time in the MCU, the Hulk disappeared following the events of Age of Ultron, and speculation began that Marvel was trying to get a Planet Hulk movie off the ground. It was later revealed that this would just be included into the storyline for the upcoming Thor Ragnarok, and Mark Ruffalo began to speak out about why Hulk never got a follow-up movie in the MCU. In the lead-up to the release of Thor Ragnarok, people began asking Mark Ruffalo, wouldn't you like a solo Hulk movie? And this is where he began speaking out against Universal. In one specific interview, he said, "I want to make one thing perfectly clear today. A standalone Hulk movie will never happen. Universal has the rights, and for some reason, they don't know how to play well with Marvel, and they don't want to make money." This led to Kevin Feige working with Mark Ruffalo in order to make a Hulk storyline that they both could enjoy happen over the course of several movies. Now, if you're familiar with the Sony Pictures and 20th Century Fox deals with Marvel Studios, then you probably know that the deal states that both of those studios needed to work on movies in order to keep the rights for those characters. This is why Sony just kept putting out those Spider-Man spin-off movies year after year, even though they didn't do well. But their deal with Universal was very different. Back in the late 90s, Marvel Comics was going through a bankruptcy, and the only way they could keep afloat is by licensing their characters out to various different movie studios. Blade was snatched up by New Line Cinema, Spider-Man went to Sony, the X-Men went to Fox, but Universal definitely got the best deal of the bunch. They optioned the rights to make movies based on Hulk, but also they wanted the Marvel theme park rights. And at the time, this would have been seen as a big win for Marvel. Having attractions based on their characters at an extremely popular theme park, along with all of the different movies that are now releasing, would have served as the perfect cross-promotion for their comics. So they gave Universal a much better deal than everybody else. They would hold on to the character rights in perpetuity, essentially meaning that no matter what happens in the future, Universal can hold on to those rights and continue using those characters. And when it comes to theme parks, who's Universal's biggest competitor? That's right, it's Disney. So when Marvel was purchased by Disney in 2009, Disney was not allowed to use any of the Marvel characters that were featured at Universal Studios in any competing region. So because Universal Studios in California had no Marvel presence there, Disney was allowed to create their own Marvel attractions in Disneyland. But Universal Studios in Orlando features an entire Marvel-themed section of the park. This is why the only Marvel inclusion at Disney World currently is a Guardians of the Galaxy ride. And these rights are the biggest reason of why Disney will not get the rights back to the Hulk. Universal isn't just trying to maintain the film rights for the Hulk, they also need to hold on to all of those theme park attractions attractions. Despite being nearly 30 years old, those attractions are some of the most popular at Universal Studios. And this is why Universal is so reluctant to work with Disney on this. They don't need to split a couple $100 million with Disney on a Hulk solo movie, because doing the bare minimum by keeping up their Marvel attractions that already exist and are already still very popular with fans will in the long term make a lot more money and be less of a financial risk. And this brings us up to Phase 4 and the MCU's reintegration of so many of the elements from that original Incredible Hulk movie. In Shang-Chi, Legend of the Ten Rings, we got a brief cameo of Tim Roth returning as Abomination, a role he reprised a year later in She-Hulk Attorney at Law, and when we received the announcement of Captain America Brave New World, then known as New World Order, it was announced that Tim Blake Nelson would be the main antagonist of the movie, returning as Samuel Stearns nearly 20 years later. And then a couple months later, we heard that Liv Tyler would be returning as Betty Ross in the same movie. And this made Captain America Brave New World a very confusing movie. Why is Sam Wilson's first movie as Captain America essentially a sequel to a nearly 20-year-old Hulk movie? Jump to 3 years later, the movie releases, everybody is confused by the leader's design, and a few months later we see leaked makeup tests of what Samuel Stearns was originally supposed to look like in the movie. And as I said before, I think this version of the makeup goes a little too far. I know it's pretty comic accurate, but it's a little too reminiscent of like Megamind or Dr. Cortex from Crash Bandicoot. In my opinion, it looks more like his forehead size increased rather than his brain expanding. But hear me out. I have a theory of how we could get the best of both worlds in a future appearance of this character. Stearns is currently incarcerated on the raft, and he's still in an early stage of his mutation. Now, given the tone and style of Captain America Brave New World, I think this version works better for this type of movie. It's extremely grotesque, and it reflects the torture and trauma he endured while being a prisoner of General Ross. And having the character's appearance evolve movie after movie into who they are in the comics is something that we see very frequently in the MCU. Think about how many appearances of Wanda Maximoff it took before she started looking just like Scarlet Witch from the comics. So yes, while I don't love this look for the leader, I do believe that it works better for the story of Captain America Brave New World, and that this was just the first step of reintroducing him to audiences, and later after Doomsday and Secret Wars we could get a bigger Hulk-centered movie in the MCU. We now have several different characters with Hulk-based powers existing in the MCU, and there's a big desire to see Bruce Banner revert from Smart Hulk back to the more monstrous version of himself that previously existed. And it seems like, given the plotline of Captain America Brave New World, Samuel Stearns is the one to kick that plot into motion. While Bruce Banner, the Incredible Hulk, would be the main character of the movie, it would have to be an ensemble film. I could see them repurposing the Thunderbolts name for something like this. Maybe they do a Savage Avengers or Secret Avengers movie. There's a few different alternatives to get the leader from that original design that we saw in Brave New World to a more comic version of him that we will have facing off against the Hulk. But that's all I have to say for this video. Let me know what you think about this down in the comments below, and I'd like to announce that we are going to start answering your questions in our videos. We're thinking up a catchy name for it, but if you have a question that you want us to answer, leave it in the comments down below with the hashtag mailbag. I'm going to try and answer one question per video, so if you have a burning question for me to answer, leave it down in the comments below with the hashtag mailbag. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.